Designer Notes, Subject 6. G-Shock Cross Gundam Project Log Modifications, Part 1. There's an avid modding scene in the G-Shock community. Most modifications include part swapping and repaints. Then there's the occasional LCD swaps using polarized film. In this project, we want to do something a little bit more unique. There's going to be scratch building, panel scribing, and some photo-etched parts to be included. Some leftover parts from other plastic model kits will be included, such as these coming from the 1/500 scale Dendrobium, the foot soles coming from the RE100 GP04, and a few more plastic model kit parts coming from Bandai. The idea is to make use of the aesthetic that Bandai has established throughout its Gundam designs. These are mostly rectangular panels with the occasional diagonal lines. There's ample opportunity to plan ahead which plastic model parts will go to the G-Shock. The challenge is to achieve a uniform design that could masquerade itself as like a special edition G-Shock release. Other non-Bandai aftermarket parts will be used, such as these thruster nozzles from Ocean Spirits. Of course, it is utterly ridiculous to use thrusters in your wristwatch, but for this one, we're going to use the shapes rather than the whole nozzle itself. One of the signature aesthetics of Gundam design are the circular hatches found all over the mobile suit. These same circular aesthetics are found in the G-Shock. We're going to emphasize them even more using the circular photo-etched detailed parts from Ocean Spirits. Bandai also produces some optional parts for their model kits, such as these radome sensors. Of course, these circular sensors are way too big to be included in the G-Shock, but we're going to make use of the smaller details. There's going to be some cutting and sanding needed for this. Part of the appeal of Gundam design is they try to make it as realistic as possible. Exhaust pipes and vents are pretty common in mobile suit design, and we're going to include that in our G-Shock. It would go well with the corner grips of the 5600. Aftermarket bezels will be used for this project, and those bezels will be cut and molded to shape instead of this original bezel. Some leftover water slide decals will also be used. These decals vary in design, so it needs to be carefully curated for this project. Aerosol paints and primer round off the materials. Model kit modifications often begin by gathering the materials to be used. Once the materials are gathered, it's time to prepare them for the project. These skirts coming from the GP02A will need to be cut. These connection points need to go. After the connection points are cut off, it needs to be sanded and flattened. This flat surface will help the cement bond the two pieces together. Test fitting the parts to the G-Shock will help us visualize what needs to be done. During the test fitting, it was found that this part needs to be installed in the lower adapter rather than the upper one. The upper adapter was prone to impact when the watch is in use. This part includes a circular cap. We'll upgrade this area using the photo-etched hatch. We'll also need to trim off the curved parts underneath the skirt. It needed to be done to reduce the thickness of the part. A cheap metal file is indispensable for these projects. These metal files can be found in your local hardware store. The desired modification is achieved. Now we need to duplicate this with the other skirt. You need to occasionally clean your work area. Dust and plastic debris can interfere with glue or with finishing surfaces. Some modeling cement will be used in this process. This cement is carefully blended to melt the polystyrene plastic. A small application is needed, and the bond was quick and successful. Time for another test fit. This time, let's install the Nato strap. During this test fit, we found a gap between the lug adapter and that plastic part. The Nato strap adds some height to the watch, and the part we're working on adds even more to this thickness. Any plastic we can shave off from this part will help with its dimensions. Next, we need to fill in the gaps with each side of this part. We're going to use plain polystyrene plastic. We're going to cut them into rectangles, sandwich 3 of them together, and duplicate that process for the other side. We're going to use the same filing technique to flatten the surface. Apply some plastic cement and bond the 2 pieces together. After applying the cement, you only have a few moments to align the material. Repeat the process for the other side. Test fitting number 3. The lug adapters have an interesting diagonal line that we need to follow. We'll mark these parts and cut off the excess material. A hobby knife with interchangeable blades can help out with this part of the build. The blade needs to be chosen carefully for the task. For cutting the excess material, we need to file the sides to make it as seamless as possible. A 2.5mm engraver is used to add a notch to each edge. This notch will help divert your attention to the edges rather than to the seams between plastics. Some modeling putty is applied to the seams to hide the cracks and holes created by the cutting. The putty is soft and applied equally to the surface. We'll let the day pass to allow the putty to dry. Once the putty is dry, the project will resume.